Am I the butthole for making my friend pay for her own UberEats? First things first, I'm broke. Anyway, earlier today, I got a text from my friend asking me to come with her to the store to buy some Christmas gifts for her family. Both of us don't have a car, so we had to Uber there and back. The cost going was $32, coming back was $36, so $68 in total. After we got back to her place, she sent me an Apple Pay request charge of $34. I was confused as to why, because she's the one that asked me to come with her. I thought since we didn't plan on going together and because I didn't want to go in the first place, I didn't have to pay for the ride. I mentioned to her, "Why did you send the request?" She said, "Well, we both took the same Uber to go there and come back, so." I was a bit upset, but I sent her the money anyway. Later during the night, I told her I was going to order food. My dad made me use his card. I asked her if she wanted anything, but I had asked in a way to make it seem as if I was going to pay, just like, "Hey, I'm gonna order food, want anything?" She said yes. My order was $34.27 and hers was $47.56. With delivery fee and tip, it came up to $92.83 total. After the food came, she looked over and said, "Thanks so much." I waited until we were both done eating and sent her an Apple Pay request for $53. That includes her meal, half of delivery fee, and half tip. She got very upset with me and told me I was a B-word. She was going on and on about how she thought I was going to pay. I don't know, am I the butthole here? Edit, I am a student. I understand that I could have simply used the money I had to buy groceries, but that would have been impossible for me. I live in a dorm hours away from home. My friend's doesn't because her home is 10 minutes away. So I wouldn't have anywhere to cook a proper meal. You might be thinking, why didn't cook at your friend's place? I simply didn't want to do that because her parents weren't there and I didn't want to use their things without permission. My definition of broke is probably different than yours. I have a few bucks in my savings, but that's for college bills that I can't touch. I had no money in my checking account because I had sent her the last of it for the Uber. Yes, I understand that the food I ordered was expensive. In my defense, nothing here is cheap, food is overpriced, and I thought if I order food that will last me a few days, it was worth it in the end. Second edit, she paid me back, the money was sent back to my dad's account. Lamau, you are the hero I didn't know I needed. This ought to be on r/petty revenge, not r/am the butthole. Not the butthole for sure. She sure didn't like the taste of her medicine, did she? That being said, I doubt this will get better. I'd avoid engaging in any transaction-based activities with her unless clearly establishing financial responsibility for said transactions beforehand. Not the butthole. She clearly doesn't like the taste of her own medicine. It's called a taste of her own medicine, not the butthole. Not the butthole. It was her meal. You pay for your meal. Especially when your meal costs $50. Am I the butthole for buying a plus-size Barbie for my plus-size sister's cake? My sister, 23, wanted a birthday cake made by me with her in Barbie form on top. As I was looking through all the Barbies, I saw a Barbie that looks exactly like her. She had long wavy brown hair and a side pony and was wearing a dress similar to one she always wears. She also had on purple and green eyeshadow like my sister sometimes wears. My sister is a bigger girl, around 185 pounds and 5,5, and this doll was a part of the Barbie's curvy range. I make the cake, which may I add looked pretty damn good, and placed it with her gifts in the kitchen. When she saw it, she was horrified. She ranted about how I picked a fat Barbie to make fun of and humiliate her. I'm not gonna lie, when I first saw this Barbie it didn't even come into my head that it was from the Kirby set of Barbies until I came home. I was more stunned over how much it resembled her in hair and makeup. She left the room and hasn't come out of her room since. I feel like I've ruined her birthday, but I also feel like she went a little overboard with her reaction. Am I the butthole? No buttholes here. You did a sweet thing, but you didn't realize that the doll would be a trigger. Your sister likely wanted to feel pretty on her birthday, and the doll reminded her that she doesn't look like a regular Barbie, not that anyone does in real life. Her proportions are ridiculous. Body image is personal and tricky. Give your sister a hug when she's calmed down and I'm sure it will be fine. No buttholes here. I'm plus-sized and I'd love if someone did it for me, but I get that she might have body image issues. Am I the butthole for demanding.money up front for grandchildren? I, 27 female, got married 2 years ago. My husband, 28, and I are waiting to have kids until we are better established in our careers. He is an only child, but I have 3 older siblings. His parents had him older in life, so they are in their 60s and almost retired. My parents are actually older than them, and my oldest brother is almost 18 years older than me. My oldest niece is 17. Altogether my parents have 7 grandkids from my 3 older siblings. My in-laws have none. And boy do they want them. At Thanksgiving they were on as non-stop about when we were going to have kids. Like I said, we aren't in a hurry. My biological clock is very definitely not ticking. We are not child-free. We want kids. Eventually. But they are just not in the cards yet. They will not drop the subject. So I said that I would agree to get pregnant if they agreed to pay my full salary while I was off work and raising their grandchild. They can afford this. But they would have to cut back on their vacations and other fun expenses. So that started a fight. They said that I'm being greedy and insensitivity. I said that I am not going to put my family into debt for years for their whims. If they wait a few more years, then they will get grandkids. But if they want them now, then I expect them to pay for them. My husband is on my side, but he says I could have been more gentle with them. My parents are saying that my in-laws are getting older and want grandkids while they are young enough to enjoy them. I just point out that my mother-in-law didn't have my husband until she was 35. Why are they expecting us to damage our financial future just so they can have grandkids sooner? Am I the butthole? Not the butthole. They are being incredibly rude. You are not an incubator and they don't get to control your life. Don't have kids until you are ready. You will regret it if you allow yourself to be used this way. They will take over and feel they have purchased you and child and will stomp all boundaries. Not the butthole. I'm of the opinion that if someone keeps poking a bear after they've been kindly warned and the reasoning explained, then they shouldn't be surprised when they keep pushing and get snapped back at. They don't respect you. My boyfriend and I are child-free, but his parents keep prodding us too. We have a lot of reasons. Financial and health issues on my end are the most prominent. Eventually I told them if they're not happy with the grandkids they have on his sister's side, then they can adopt another kid instead, but leave us alone because it's not going to happen. Not the butthole. If they are going to persist in trying to tell you what and when to do with your body, you're entitled to brutal honesty in your response. They're the rude ones. Not the butthole. So it's like this: insert oft repeated request followed by oft repeated refusal, repeat request again with even greater sense of urgency followed by an even more emphatic denial, then suddenly shock and massive offense. But you didn't have to say it like that. Yes, I freaking did when you didn't take no for an answer the first 167 time I politely told you no. Am I the butthole for telling my BF and his mom that I'm the one who should get to choose my daughter's name? I, 25 female, am pregnant with my first child. We recently found out it was a girl and started thinking about names. My boyfriend, 26 male, wants to name her Michaela. I on the other hand prefer something more old-fashioned, and want to name her Octavia. The other day my boyfriend's mom, 60 female, was over for dinner and asked us if we decided on a name yet. We told her both of our choices, and of course she sided with my boyfriend. She said that if we name our daughter Octavia she will be bullied in school and end up hating her name. I told them both that old lady names are in style right now and that her classmates will have similar names. I also said it could be way worse. I know a little girl named Seven, and that people are naming their kids some crazy things. They doubled down and I got frustrated, saying that I was the one who had to carry her for 9 months and should be in charge of naming her. I said it out of frustration, but I do believe what I said. I'm the one who has to be in constant discomfort and I'm the one who has to experience likely the worst pain of my life while giving birth. His mom got upset at this and said that my BF has just as much say in the name since it takes two to tango. After this I told my boyfriend I would be willing to compromise and choose a less obvious old-fashioned name like Lily or Ruby, but he didn't like any of those suggestions either. So am I the butthole for telling my boyfriend that I should choose the name since I'm the one who has to be pregnant? Also, would I be the butthole if I still insist on naming her the name I picked? I really love the name, and although I haven't officially met her yet I feel like it will suit her. You need to agree on the name. It's not going to be either Michaela or Octavia, since both names are not mutually liked. There are millions of names out there. Put in some effort and take a look. You will both be raising the child, you will both have the right to like the child's name. Don't start her life or with parents that resent each other over one thing that defines a child. You also do not have more of a legal right to the choice of your child's name than he does. If you make him feel that this is your child alone, or primarily yours, he'll never bond properly with the child. Same goes the other way too, if you were to relent. Just find a name you can agree on. You would be the butthole. 1. Octavia isn't an old lady name. Unless you're an old lady from the Roman Empire. 2. Just because you carried the baby for 9 months doesn't mean your partner doesn't get an equal say in naming. You want him to take equal responsibility in raising your little girl, right? 3. Everybody sucks here. He shouldn't have ganged up on you with his mom. And you're simply wrong about how entitled you are to unilaterally choose the name. Y'all are gonna have to find a compromise somehow. Am I the butthole for baking 1 cookie per person? This is beyond trivial, but I'd like to know what other people think, especially parents. Last weekend, my nephew Tate, 5, started coming over for piano lessons with my husband. My sil and brother brought him, along with my niece, 3. I had a few cookies left over from a batch I'd made the day before, and I told Tate that if he listened to my husband during the lesson, there'd be a cookie waiting for him after. Everyone hung out in another room for about 20 minutes while my husband and Tate did the lesson. Afterward, I gave him and my niece a cookie. He asked for another one, and then a third, finishing them off. His parents were cool with it and mentioned his appetite's been large lately. I saw Tate a few days later. We get together for dinner every week with my parents, and he seemed to think he will always get a cookie after his lesson, as a matter of fact, which I thought was pretty cute and don't mind obliging. This week, I made and froze a few dozen different types of cookie dough balls for Christmas. So when Tate came over today for lesson number 2 with his mom, dad, and sister in tow, I popped 6 cookies in the oven, one for every person. After the lesson, I put the cookies out and everyone took one, including me. The problem began when Tate finished his cookie and asked for another one. I told him I only made one for everyone. Soon after that, I mentioned to my sil all the cookie dough I'd been making lately. She asked if I had more ready to bake. Why didn't I bake more than 6, since I knew Tate would want more than one? I didn't really have a good answer. I said I didn't want to use up all the cookies that were intended for Christmas, which was part of it, but it sounded kind of lame on its own. The truth was it did occur to me to bake more, but I thought one celebratory cookie after a music lesson seems appropriate. Like a healthy, structured ritual. Whereas having 3 or more cookies seems like it's crossing the line into anarchy. I am kidding, of course, just having a hard time conveying my feeling on this. Even though I didn't say any of this, I think it came across, because my sil and brother seemed tense and left pretty quickly. Now I feel like maybe I was imposing my own morals on them, which may not have been cool. They're not my kids. I don't even have kids. So Reddit, am I the butthole? Should I double up on cookies next week? If you're getting a free cookie you're not entitled to more free cookies. Not the butthole. Not the butthole. If mommy dearest wants Tate to have more than one cookie, she can bake more herself. I think your sil is pretty bold to even suggest that you cater to her 5-year-old's demand for cookies. You're totally reasonable in having a 1 per person limit. Reminds me of the kid's book, If You Give a Cookie to a Mouse. Not the butthole. Am I the butthole for refusing to lie to my father's stepdaughter for him? 6 years ago my sister was diagnosed with terminal cancer. She died 8 months later. The 8 months before her death she begged Dad to do some stuff without his wife and stepdaughter and give her some memories of us together with our mom and him. He agreed. His stepdaughter was 6 at the time and knew us most of her life, so I know she was confused when she no longer saw my sister at all and then was told she died. Not to mention why the man she called Dad was gone so much. My dad wanted my sister to let his wife and stepdaughter be at her bedside with the rest of the family, but she said they weren't her family and refused. She died with me, Mom, Dad and our grandparents at her side. Right after my sister died my dad and I had a huge falling out. He wanted me to move in with him and he wanted me to shower his stepdaughter with the same love I showered my sister with. He told me I needed to be her big brother for real now because it was going to be a lot for her. I told him I would never feel the same for her as I did my sister and I did not want to pretend I cared about her at that time. He told me I owed them all, he included his wife in that, because I was the last sibling left and needed to make up for my sister shutting stepsister out at the end of her life. Dad and I did not talk after our argument until he reached out 3 months ago. It started with him wanting to know how I was doing, but then he told me how his stepdaughter missed me and my sister and how she'd struggled with not saying goodbye to her sister and why she didn't get to see her before she died, why she had nothing of hers to hold on to. How she asked a lot about why I wasn't around anymore. He asked me to talk to her and tell her that my sister had wanted to see her and to help her believe that she was loved and wanted by her and that my sister asked for her a lot at the end. I told him I would not lie for him. He snapped at me and said I owed her this much when I abandoned her just like my sister had for no other reason than she wasn't our bio sister and wasn't enough for us to love. He told me I should be a better man than that. Am I the butthole? Not the butthole. If that is the story your dad wants to tell her, that is his business. You do not owe anyone a lie that changes the memories of your sister. You don't owe your dad or stepsister a lie to appease some fairy tale your dad told. Not the butthole. Your dad, on the other hand, massive. He hasn't spoken to his own son in 6 years? And now instead of listening or making up with you, his own child, he wants you to lie about your dead sister so some 12-year-old you're not related to feels better about herself? She hasn't seen you since she was 6, kindergarten, and has now lived another 6 years past that, and he claims she talks about you guys? Please. Here's my guess, because your father wants to make her feel better at times the past 6 years, he has been making up stories telling her how special she is, how important she is, blah blah blah, and now he needs you to back up his lies. It was not and is not your job to make your stepsister feel better because your sister died and only wanted the people closest to her around. It is not your job to deliver self-esteem on demand. You know who needs to be a better man? Your father. I'm so sorry for your sister's loss. Not the butthole. I absolutely hate when parents push the halves and steps are exactly the same. Crap. They're not. You grew up with your sister. You didn't grow up with your stepsis. Not the butthole. He's trying to guilt trip you and manipulate you. You don't have to do anything you're not comfortable with. It isn't fair to you or his stepdaughter. Am I the butthole for not telling my sister what her kids confide in me about? My sister lost the father of my niece and nephew when the kids were 6 and 8. She met her second husband in a grief group for widowed parents who also had children, and they married. At the time she told me the reason it worked so well is they respected each other's losses and knew they would have trouble transitioning the 4 kids. But that is not how things went, and almost right away they were asking the kids to remove the step from titles and presenting as a biological nuclear family. Within a year of their marriage all traces of the late spouses and parents were gone also, and I know from my sister's 2 children that they were not given their dad's photos or things. When the kids made their anger about that known, they ended up in 4 years of family therapy where my sister and her husband had the goal of changing their feelings and outlook on the situation. I spoke to my sister, and so did a number of family members who felt it was badly handled. But she dismissed us all. So her kids started confiding in me, and I did not tell her about it. I know they feel let down by her and they dislike her husband and his kids. I also know they fight with his kids more than my sister and her husband realize. I also know they wish they could move out, but even now as teenagers that's not on the table for them until they reach 18. But my sister and her husband recently found out the kids were still not happy with the new family. Then my nephew had a big argument with his mom, and he told her that I listened better than she did, and it was no wonder he and his sister were closer to me when they could tell me anything. She confronted me over it and said I should have told her what her kids were saying and done more to help because they were just doing the best for their kids and now it might be too late. Am I the butthole? Not the butthole. They haven't been taking any consideration of the children's feelings. You are doing a good job. I'm sure it makes a massive difference to them knowing that someone hears them. Not the butthole. You gave the kids the one thing they desperately needed, a person they can trust. From the sounds of it, your sister, and probably her husband, too, decided to try to cope with the grief by trying to erase it. Which can't work, of course. Am I the butthole for exposing my mom's alcoholism to my dad? For context, my 17 female mother, 47 female, is and has been a functioning alcoholic since I was young. While it may not seem apparent to most who know us, she has a severe problem with alcohol and controlling herself whilst under the influence. This has caused a series of traumatizing events to occur, including embarrassing and insulting PPL. It has destroyed my parents' relationship. In 2020, the same day she was caught having an affair online, she completely abandoned my little brother and I to get completely blind 2 hours away. Not including 9 years old me walking in on her drunkenly making out with my dad's best friend. She has continually hid her addiction from my dad, and every time she's caught there's always a massive fight. My dad saying he'll leave her, she's pathetic, etc. I stay out of it, but my dad pulled me aside recently after she drank 2 whole bottles of wine on a Wednesday afternoon. He told me that next time she drinks tell him and they're done. I hate my mom's drinking, but I don't want them to divorce. My dad went away on a business trip last Friday and I came home to my mom completely drunk. Only one freaking day it took. I got pissed and walked off. When my dad came back I told him. She drank and got smashed. He's leaving her. Mom won't talk to me. She says I've ruined everything. I feel like I've destroyed my relationship with her. Any and all advice is heavily appreciated. Disclaimer, my mom has never admitted to having a problem or thinking there's a problem with her drinking. She sees it as a way of relaxing. Not the butthole. You shouldn't have been put in the middle of this, but I understand that your dad may have felt like he didn't have any other resources. This will be better for him and for you, and may be the thing she needs to find the motivation to do better for herself. Addiction is a disease. She does need some kindness and compassion, but she also needs accountability. Your dad shouldn't have to keep lighting himself on fire to keep her warm. You deserve stability in whatever place you call home. Not the butthole. You did not ruin anything, absolutely none of this is your fault. Your mom is the only one who ruined her marriage. You need to go to your dad and tell him how you feel he put you in this situation. He needs to understand how it's affecting you. He really should not have put you in that position at all. He already had all the evidence he needed, and if he truly thought he needed just one more thing. Cameras exist. Please ask him to get you and your brother and himself into a good therapist. And he owes you a massive apology. Not the butthole. I am so sorry you have to be a party to this. Your mom is the butthole for blaming you for her problems. Your dad is the butthole for making you tattle on your mother. It's awful they put you in that position. I hope your mother can get the help she needs and you and won't blame you for her mistakes. Am I the butthole, refusing to help my sister take care of her chronic illness? I have a lot of chronic health conditions. It runs in my family. My sister and mother both share some of the same illnesses as me. Despite this, all my life they made fun of me for being so health conscious. I was called dramatic for getting anxious about running out of / not taking meds. I was called a hypochondriac for doing exercise to slow side effects. I've been belittled and made fun of, called a dirty hippie for changing my diet and taking supplements. My whole family treated me like some head case for being worried about my own health. Disclaimer, I'm not that obsessed. I just like not to feel sick all the time, so I look after myself. I've moved out a while ago and my health has never been better. My sister, on the other hand, is saying her illness has gotten loads worse. I offered some tips and was met with a barrage of comments about it being too late for all that. My mum says I'm selfish and should have encouraged her to look after herself before it caused problems. I spent my whole young life encouraging both my mother and sister to do better by their health and was made fun of for it. I don't personally feel I'm in the wrong, as they ignored all my best efforts. My mum and sister think I'm selfish and that I'm rubbing my current good health in their faces. My mum thinks it was my responsibility to teach my sister, as we had the same illness. AITA, family ignored my effort to help them with our shared illness. Sister is now 10x worse and says it's my fault for not warning her of complications. Not the butthole, and it says a lot about your family dynamic that your own health improved after you got some distance from your mother and sister. Do not allow them to sabotage you by dragging you back into their dysfunctional orbit. Not the butthole. You can lead a horse to water, but can't force it to drink. You've set the example, it is up to them to follow through. It sounds like they are not willing to make any changes though. Not the butthole. You tried. They rejected your efforts. It's not your responsibility and it never was. It's sad, of course, but as they said, the ship has sailed. Am I the butthole for not providing extra help to my sister anymore? I, 24 female, have been taking care of my sister, 18 female, since I was 14 to 15 because my mother was facing a lot mental issues. So I have tried to be there for her in my best abilities and parent her, tell her right and wrong, help her in school and empower her. I'd like to think that we're pretty close. She started uni in September, my BF 29 male, and I are fully paying for her school. We gave her new laptop for school as well and keep on buying her whatever she wants and if it's in our capability. She started seeing someone in the past few months and then we even sat her down and talked to her and told her as this guy wasn't up to no good we could tell. She told us she'll be careful but ended up getting her heart broken after 2 months when she found out that he is seeing 2 other girls as well. We have been there for her since she took it harshly. Giving her advice, providing support, letting her stay in my room with us as she doesn't want to be alone. My BF is about to get a big amount from his work soon, so we thought we will send my sister to weekly therapy, as she has expressed that she'd like to go but doesn't have funds, and set her a bank account and give her a good amount of money to kickstart her savings. As we were never able to save money because of our financial problems. But my sister is very mean towards me. Example, I always ask if she wants to go shopping or food with us, but whenever she has to go somewhere, she never invites me but our cousin instead. My BF is from another country, so we travel half the year to see his family. She says things like, well, you roam around the world and live nice anytime, tell her no from anything. Never wants to spend time with me. To be honest, I feel used. I do everything in capacity for her. I'm trying to provide her with the support I never had growing up. Hence why, I have decided that I'll stop with the extra help such as gifts, helping with saving, helping with therapy and inviting her. I will only pay for her school as I'm obliged to do that because of my culture, but that's it. My mom thinks I'm the off for stopping. Also, English isn't my language, so please excuse my grammar. Edit, I have talked to her about this before. I told her how I feel and she said she understands and will correct her behavior, be a more kinder towards me. She says she's thankful for me and my BF, but then her actions are completely opposite. Anytime I need something small from her or her help, she would be very rude. When I want to talk about something I'm facing, she'll tell me get out of her room. Today my BF and I had planned date night, but she asked us if she could come with us 2 days ago. We changed everything and said yes. Then she came to today and said, oh, please give me some money, I'm gonna go with our cousin 24 female, instead. It was hurtful as I changed everything for her and then she just dumped me like that. When I told her this, she said I was making a big deal out of this. Not the butthole, she's using you like a bank. Stop now. Not the butthole. She is 18. She can go and get a job and pay her own way. Not the butthole, time for sis to learn as an adult, you can't treat people like dirt and expect them to treat you with kindness in return. Better to learn this now at 18 than in 10 or 20 years after she's alienated everyone in her world. Am I the butthole for refusing to spend time with my birth family? I, 22 female, was adopted as a baby. My adoptive parents are the best people in the world. I've never had any interest in meeting my birth parents, despite my adoptive parents being very open about who they are and contacting them if I ever wanted to. It's always been my choice not to. Recently my birth dad must have got married. His new wife found me on social media and sent me a message asking to meet. I didn't reply. She sent me several more messages saying how her kids are really excited about meeting their new sister and to just let her know when would work for me to come to their city. The last message set out a whole plan for Christmas Eve and exchanging presents. The tone was very much "this is what is happening," not an invitation. Clearly ignoring her wasn't getting through, so I sent her a really blunt message. It basically said, "I don't know you, I'm not your kid's sister, and I'm not spending Christmas Eve with you. Back off and do not contact me again." Yes, it was blunt, but she seemed like the type who wouldn't get it otherwise. She sent me one last message saying it was rude to ignore family and thanks to me her kids are so disappointed. I didn't really think much of the message, but when I told some of my friends they said I was the a-hole for disappointing little kids who didn't know any better. My view is that's on their mum, not me. But now I'm thinking maybe I could have been more diplomatic. Not the butthole. Your birth father's new wife has overstepped massively there. You haven't disappointed little kids, she did, for making promises she couldn't keep. To blame you for not keeping her promises for her is ridiculous. If you don't want to link with your bio parents, what on earth made her think her and her children would be any different? Also, your friends suck. Yes, it's a shame kids have been disappointed, but you didn't make the promises. Blame the person who did. Not the butthole. It was very presumptuous of her to invite you to family event when you've never expressed any interest in being part of, or even meeting, their family. You do not owe your birth parents anything. You are not your birth father's daughter. You are not his new wife's stepdaughter. You are not her children's new sister. And it sounds like you did what you needed to do to make that clear. Am I the butthole for washing my kids' hair? My youngest son Zach is 9. I have 2 other boys, so this whole not wanting to shower mood is not new. I do check to see if he has showered, and most of the time he doesn't wash his hair. At least not enough because it smells the next day. I grown tired of sending him back to the shower, the crying, etc., so I offered to wash his hair for him. Less than a minute. He said fine. So now he'll call me when he's showering to wash his hair. Sometimes we end up talking about random stuff or play like he tried to squirt water at me. Then he'll either ask me to play a game or read a story with him afterwards. Now he's asking me to lay with him until he falls asleep. I end up sleeping with him a few times a week in his bed for a few hours. It's quite nice to bond with him instead of having nighttime conflicts. My wife isn't thrilled with this. Ironically, she works late, so she's never dealt with this. She thinks our son should be washing his own hair, should be putting himself to bed and sleeping by himself. I said yes, that's ideal. That's just not how things are. It's fine. It's no different than letting your 14-year-old the same R-rated 80/90s horror movies you saw at 11. This is called excellent parenting, right here. Well done. Not the butthole. Kids need what they need when they need it. A need that gets met gets outgrown in its own time. A need left unmet festers. My adult kids are usually delightful. One is arranging donuts for me tomorrow morning. Your near-tween boy is asking you to spend time hanging out with him. That's really nice, actually. Still, there's some complexity about the 2 things that he should be able to do himself, washing hair and sleeping in solo. I think it's worth getting to the bottom of why he cries about washing his hair himself. That doesn't seem standard 9-yo to me. It's not that it's terrible that you wash his hair, it's that it's important to know if there's an underlying issue that's leading to tantrums. Likewise, it's worth knowing why he doesn't/won't sleep on his own. It may be nothing. It may be something worth dealing with. He's a bit lonely/sad/anxious and struggles to get to sleep? Well, then it's worth knowing. He has bigger worries that he is uncomfortable being alone with? Well, definitely need to know. It doesn't need to stop necessarily, and your bonding with him today, I learned now, will actually make it easier to find out, but it is worth talking about what's going on. No buttholes here. Am I the butthole for asking my dad where the money I made from work was? For context, female, 19 inches, my 2nd year of university and still live with my parents because of financial reasons. This past summer, I worked full-time and earned quite a bit of money which I was going to put towards my rent for next year as I really want to live alone. I found out today that my dad was using this money to make bill payments. I won't use numbers, but Therese, about 1/5 of what I had made that's left over. I only ever used less than 10% of this money on myself, then physically stopped carrying my debit card so I wouldn't use it anymore because I really wanted to save this money. My biweekly payments from work are directly deposited into this account. It's not even the fact that he used it that bothered me. I don't care, my money is their money and they're paying for my university tuition. It's the least I can do. Also, I'm working full-time this summer again so I can still earn money. I'm upset because when I asked where my money had gone, he said it's safe somewhere. OFC, the numbers weren't adding up, so I asked where? And he kept saying don't worry, it's in a savings account, so I asked him to show it to me. He started screaming at me and saying he didn't like the way I was talking to him and accusing him of stealing my money. Am I the butthole here? Was I being too pushy? I tried to explain to him that I didn't care he used my money, but it would have been nice to know before or at least show me what's left of it, as I have to start planning for places next year BC. Now I'm afraid I won't be able to afford moving out. Not the butthole. Probably the money is gone and you should get your own bank account soon. You have a good attitude about it. I doubt a lot of people would. Not the butthole even for a second. Get another account that only you can control, and if you really feel like you owe your parents money for bills, you can give them the amount you're comfortable with. What your dad's done, from taking the money you've earned, to not telling you where it is, to yelling at you, is entirely out of line. 100% no maybes about it. Not the butthole. If you pay into expenses, then you can see the books. Why at 19 would your parents have access to your bank accounts? So the reality is your father stole your money and is trying to gaslight you into thinking you are doing something wrong. I get you say you don't mind, but really if that were the case you wouldn't be asking for it, or you would have told them to keep it. By the way, your parents aren't paying for your education. It seems you are, with the money you earned. It's your money, you earned it, and now you can't have the space you wanted because he took it. If your parents couldn't have afforded your schooling without stealing your money, they should have told you up front so you could make arrangements. Your father is a thief. I would press charges personally. Am I the butthole for making my sister pick between stable living or her BF? 27 female, was asked by my sister to move in and help. At the time she was single and struggling really bad financially. It's been a year and she's back with BD number 1. They had broke up before the child was born 14 years ago BC. He was on drugs really bad. He's been couch surfing, stealing, and bumming. For some reason she thought it was a good idea to get back with him and immediately move him in. Since he's moved in, all he's done is eat, piss, and sleep. He doesn't lift a finger to help. He's still on drugs really bad. He stole his own daughter's ADHD meds and took them. He has stole multiple items of high price value off of me and sold them for an fix. We have little to no food in the house BC of him. He doesn't work and doesn't contribute anything. He takes her money that she works for even though he owes her thousands of dollars in child support he's never paid. I finally put my foot down and told her that he either leaves and doesn't come back or she can figure out how to make the bills / get food on her own. She hasn't said anything since. She has told a few people about what I said and they are calling me in butthole saying I know she needs the help. So am I the butthole? Edit, the house isn't mine, it's in her name. When I gave her the choice I meant it, and he either goes and I stay to continue to help you financially or I move out. I already have a place lined up. Not the butthole. She needs help, but the kid needs it more. If he is actively addicted and stealing, then you might consider intervention by CPS. You can't fix her stupid. But you can protect your nibbling from it. If this guy has stolen thousands of dollars of items, prescription medications, and is actively doing drugs, just go to the cops. Put him in jail and solve this problem on behalf of your sister. Not the butthole. Not the butthole. Your sister is as addicted to her BF as he is to drugs. If she's willing to let him hang around and leech off her, there's nothing you can do except get out of the situation. You don't owe him anything at all, except maybe a boot to the butt. To continue trying to fix this is only enabling your sister in her horrible choices. Time to go. She'll either decide to dump him and move on, or she won't, but letting them drag you down with them is being an odd to yourself. Not the butthole. Those friends can move in with her and help enable the BF. Not your responsibility. Am I the butthole for letting my son turn the TV off when my husband and his friends were watching a movie? This happened a few days ago. It was past 10 p.m. and my 39 husband, 42, and his friends were in our apartment watching a movie like how they usually do every week. I have 2 kids, let's call them Alan, 14, and James, 8, and it's important to the issue that the younger one has been freaked out by ghost stuff since weeks ago. It's because Alan and him went to an sleepover at Alan's friend's house and they kept telling scary stories even though James gets scared easily, Alan says. I mention this because it's important to what happened. I was in the kitchen when I heard Alan asking his father if he could change what they were watching, and I don't know what he answered, but then I realized they were arguing, and when I went there Alan turned off the TV by himself. I took Alan to his room, that he shares with James, and he told me James couldn't sleep because their father was watching a horror movie or something similar, and James could clearly hear it since their room is next to the living room. Their father and his friends just laughed and made fun of James, so that's why Alan got mad, turned it off, and they started arguing. I got upset myself, so I went to the living room and I kicked everyone out. My husband and I argued and I told him to sleep in the couch until he says sorry to both Alan and James, which he still hasn't done. I think Alan and him haven't even talked to each other after that, and I'm worried maybe I went too far. When my husband left for work this morning, James started crying cause he thinks it's his fault Alan and their father got upset with each other. Your kid is 8 years old, and his own dad was picking on and making fun of him with his friends because he was frightened of a movie? Your husband needs to grow up and to learn that parenting also means respecting your children when they ask for something, Even if that means changing the channel because they're terrified and can't fall asleep. You nor your kids are to blame for what happened. Your husband is a selfish person and is only thinking of himself and his own interests before he thinks of his kids and their comfort. Not the butthole. Not the butthole. Your oldest sounds like he was being a good and protective older brother. A group of grown men should not be making fun of an 8-year-old. That's just unacceptable behavior. Maybe they could have found a middle ground of turning it down or something to that effect, but as soon as they started mistreating children they lost that chance. You did the right thing and I think your husband is the one who owes an apology here. Greater than when my husband left for work this morning, James started crying cause he thinks it's his fault. I'm not a parent so I don't know what I'd do to fix it. But I would not stand for that. I would make that very clear to husband. Sleeping on the couch would be. Step 1. Am I the butthole for putting all my property from the kitchen in my room? BC my roommates won't clean up? Hi, so I, 21 female, live with 3 housemates, M 22, 23, 21. We've been living here for 2 years and it's been pretty great until the last 6 months. I feel like I freaking work at a frat house and I'm the house mom. Dishes never done, their GFs leave their pads and tampons in the bathroom. I know it's not me BC, I don't have my period, piss everywhere, moldy food, it's just awful. I text roommate chat every time there's a problem but no improvement. I would just let it go but it gets to a point where if someone doesn't clean up the mess crap's bout to get worse. One housemate Hugh had over 40 dishes pile up over 2 weeks, texted often asking him to do it, never did. Nearly all of the dishes were mine and I have wanted to use some of the dirty dishes to cook but couldn't. I refused to do them. Because I'm stubborn and I hate cleaning up after him. I just came home to the freaking door unlocked open with no one home. This has happened multiple times before and I've asked them to freaking stop but Abby hasn't stopped them, but the dishes were done. But I'm so freaking mad that I took everything from the kitchen that I personally own, all cutlery, bowls/plates, rice cooker, pots and pans. I'm sick of my dishes being dirty and gross all the time. There's not a lot of kitchen stuff left. It's really just Hugh who is a pain in the ass to live with. He's leaving in Jan so I can put up with it but I feel like maybe this is a bad idea, but I am currently looking at the pile of kitchen stuff in my room and I feel at peace. So be honest, am I the butthole? Duh. I had to do something similar in college just to have clean dishes to use. Also get a lock on your door. You can always uninstall when you move out. Not the butthole but I think you've outgrown living with this group of people. They sound really gross to live with. Am I the butthole for telling my dad I'm not visiting him for Christmas after he argued with me on the phone about my college major? I'm a college student, 20 female, and was going to visit my dad and stepmom this Christmas for 2 weeks. They live a 4-hour plane ride away and I haven't seen them in over a year. My dad's birthday is on December 23rd so I would be there for his birthday too. My dad and I until recently used to have a great relationship but lately we've been having big disagreements. Most of it is around my major and the career path I want to do, which he strongly and vocally disagrees with. He pays my college tuition including housing and food so I guess he does get a say but we always end up arguing and I get so stressed out, frustrated by him. Anyways, we had a disagreement/argument yesterday over FaceTime. After the call I realized I don't want to see him at Christmas or spend time with him. And then I realized I don't have to. So I canceled my flight and I'm planning to go to my BF's friend's house for Christmas Day. I texted my dad tonight that I won't be visiting for Christmas since I don't want to be around him and that I already canceled my flight. I told him that being around him is frustrating and stresses me out and I'd rather spend my Christmas holidays with people who build me up and also since I am an adult, I can choose who I want or don't want in my life. He tried calling me. I didn't answer because I didn't want to argue with him and make us both more stressed out. He left me a voicemail asking me to call him back. I ignored it of course. He then texted me, if you're trying to hurt me, congrats you win. Now I feel like an But also, it's my Christmas holiday so if I don't want to be around him, that's my right. Am I the butthole? You're the butthole. Your dad doesn't approve of your college major and argues with you about it. So what? It's not like he told you, my way or the highway. And because he dares to hold a different opinion to you, you're punishing him. Building someone up doesn't mean not arguing or disagreeing with them. You sound entitled and childish. Since you're an adult, you should act like one. That involves adult conflict resolution and paying your own way. Parents and adult kids get into disagreements all the time. The adult way to do it is to talk it out, not just cancel this trip back home like a big temper tantrum. If you don't want to see him, then you shouldn't be taking his money. What you did was rude and hurtful. And ignoring his call is the cherry on top of this crap sundae. You're the butthole. You're the butthole. You want to be an adult but you sure aren't acting like an adult. You are punishing him for having a disagreement with him. That's childish. Then you won't even take his calls. Even more childish. You are right, you don't have to go. He also doesn't have to pay for college. If you want to be treated like an adult, then act like one, go there and discuss it like an adult. It's not fair to your family to cancel at the last minute like this. They likely had plans set up already. Obviously you want to major in whatever you want. But you are far from the first person who had that problem. My grandfather wanted to be an architect, but his dad said no. It was the Great Depression and no one was building things. He became an attorney and then a very well-respected judge. I argued with my parents over my major too. But I didn't punish them by not showing up for a holiday. You need to face this head on and be done with it. All you're doing is avoiding your problem and prolonging it. That will only make things worse. You are compounding your problem by creating a new problem without resolving the other. I don't think you will have a great time because it will be weighing on your mind. The best thing to do is resolve the problem, not run away and make your dad sad. He obviously loves you very much. At least treat him with a little respect and love. I no longer have the option to spend any holidays with my parents. So please be grateful you still have him. He won't be around for you forever. Am I the butthole for not inviting my sister to my dad's memorial dinner? My 34 male sister, 26 female, don't talk. Her and my wife have major issues, so obviously I strode by my wife and have not spoke to my sister in 5 years. I don't invite her to my events or events for my children, and she does not invite me to hers. My father passed away 3 years ago. On the anniversary of his death, my wife and I decided to have a little memorial dinner for him to cook his recipes and just remember him. I invited my father's family, his brother/sister and their kids. My mom asked if I was going to invite my sister. I said of course not, especially since Bill will be there and he is the reason her and my wife have issues. So she wouldn't come anyway, and if she wants she can have her own dinner. My mom said she didn't feel right coming, and after that my dad's family also dropped out and the entire dinner fell apart and didn't happen. I was upset. I wanted to do something to remember him this year and it was ruined because of my sister. You're the butthole. You're saying it's her fault and she literally did nothing. There may be good reason that you have cut her off, but there's not enough info there. I'm inclined to think that your mom is aware of the issues more intimately and she doesn't seem to think it excuses not inviting your sister. You're the butthole. Why would your wife's brother be at a dinner honoring your father? You're the butthole. The dinner was not ruined because of your sister, who BTW knew nothing about it, I assume. This was your decision to not invite your sister. You certainly have the right to invite whomever you choose to your home, and people also have the right to turn down the invitation. You still could have had dinner with just your wife and kids. It wasn't ruined by your sister. It was ruined by you. You should try to set family differences aside for a memorial. You're the butthole. Am I the butthole for offering one kid $500 and not his siblings? I have this cousin who is 17 and very responsible. We were doing a family reunion at Six Flags and my husband didn't want to go. So, I couldn't ride any ride because I had my 2-year-old with me. I was starting to get kind of bummed. I asked my cousin how much it would cost me for him to watch my kid the rest of the day. He said $500, which I thought was fair. I said cash or check? He looked surprised that I agreed and then accepted the check and my kid. I got to ride all the rides I'd been wanting to ride. My aunt found out about this on the way back and was mad. My cousin's sisters were upset that they didn't get $500 and he did. My aunt asked why I only made the offer to him and not them. I said that I wasn't made of money and couldn't afford to pay 3 kids when I only needed 1 babysitter. Besides, his sisters are too young to babysit at such a public venue. But my aunt was still mad and tattled on me to my husband, who is now giving me the silent treatment for not spending the whole day with our son. I think this was a low move, and can't believe she was mad enough to do that. Was I really enough of an butthole to justify that? Not the butthole. You pay for a service, which he did. They're just mad because you didn't give the other kids money just to give them money. He was working for the money, therefore he earned it. Why couldn't your husband be with your son? Only the person that watched the 2 gets the money. The siblings did not do anything, they don't get the money. There was no reason to make the offer to anyone else once it was accepted. Your aunt is being ridiculous. Not the butthole. Your cousin was the one you felt capable of performing the service, so you guys came to an agreement. That's no small chunk of change, and watching a toddler in that environment is hard. No way I'm handing out that kind of money or trusting someone with my baby just out of pity. Info. What is the going rate for a babysitter where you live? $500 for the day seems steep. Why didn't your son stay home with your husband? How old are the other cousins?